I hear some noise out there in the hall.
I think
Probably
it's,
Marcy,
it's
tax collector's here too, so.
open.
Tax collector business?
She's
You
the
still
next.
got 2 minutes according to that
Yep,
clock.
you do.
I didn't get my bill.
I
I don't understand what's going on with my mail. They won't bring packages to my house. I have to go to the post office to like get half my mail
If
and
it's-
like
if
stuff, but
it's
it's not a
U-
big
If it's
post.
UPS,
Mhm.
they are often delivering to the post office.
Interesting.
It's a
It's
way of
not, though.
avoiding
It's
the last mile, which is the most expensive part of
Yeah,
package delivery.
Where are you? What
I'm
road
on
are you
West
on?
Pond Road.
It's
I have a
not-
long driveway, but my mailbox is empty. And like the other day, they didn't deliver, I ordered dish towels, it's like
Yeah,
a small
yeah.
little package.
Yeah.
And they don't even leave a note telling me
No.
it's at the
No,
post
it's
office,
at the-
I just
yeah.
have to
It's
magically like
automatic,
figure
yeah.
this out.
Well, if you
It's
didn't
a
get your tax bill,
contract.
go in
Yeah.
and ask Marcy, she'll give you a copy.
I will, I'll come down, what's tomorrow?
Well, she's right there right now.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
wanna
she's
take
here
a few
now?
minutes
Yeah.
and go here?
Yeah.
You
They
know,
have
save
what they
you a
call
trip.
UPS Sure Post, which is a contract between
UPS.
UPS and the Postal Service, that
US,
Trump was
yes.
saying that the UPS wasn't charging, or the USPS wasn't charging UPS enough for the Sure Post services.
Hi there, close to fame.
Good evening, Wilkes.
Good evening, Judy.
We'll try and keep it short-ish tonight.
Oh no, I'm in a big traffic jam on I-95 for 14 miles, so I got plenty of time.
Okay.
Well, that'll keep you
Oh
occupied.
dear, that's terrible.
I'm putting down here the MS 434 revised. This is
Okay.
from the DRA. The last revenue sheet I gave you, just throw it away, scrap paper.
Why don't you take a couple and start passing them around? You need 3 going
I
that
had
way.
them set out so
3
perfect.
this way.
So the one that was attached to what's there is wrong?
I don't have one attached to what's there. It was from the last meeting.
Sorry.
Did you get one already?
No.
Oh,
Okay. Oh, okay, I'll look over here. Perfect, thanks.
It's set up differently, but it's just, you know, it is what it is.
Okay, thank you, Dina.
I couldn't seem to do a simple formula today.
We don't have to vote on revenues.
No, you
It's a
don't,
good
but
thing.
People were
People were
curious, so
curious.
it was good of Dina to provide that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, can
All
I
right.
make a motion to increase revenues?
Please do.
All right, I'm gonna call it, we're about a minute late, or 2 minutes late, so we didn't get started until 7:02.
Okay,
And the first order of business is always the minutes of the previous meeting, which was November 9th. And I think I sent it out to everybody because Dina forgot to include it in her
Oh,
package.
They were great minutes.
Yeah.
Very
I'm
impressive.
gonna go through the minutes as submitted.
okay, Bill
Yeah.
is moving them, I'll second them.
Where did I go? I just put all these documents on that.
Any changes or corrections?
I moved it.
Well, they already moved, Bill moved them, so you're all set.
And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Unanimous.
All right, moving right along. Judy gave us in the package at some point here, the worksheet basically with a couple of changes that the selectmen made after our last meeting. And
I don't think it came
I
out,
sent out
I
a
don't
new
think it
budget.
came out as a
Oh.
worksheet.
Oh, is this,
I
I think
I
I
just brought
have
it
this on
myself.
my-
I did
Oh,
it
it's better
today.
than the other one?
Yeah.
no, I've got
Are you
one.
gonna
Oh,
send
yes,
the
yes,
PDF
Dina
as
did
well?
that, okay.
Yes.
Yep,
Okay, all right.
the
I
highlights.
was-
I already have
Therefore,
it.
I
I
just
don't even know
finished
how to
it
do
today.
like a
Okay,
notebook
fine, thank
anymore,
you.
just put everything
So you wanna use this
directly,
one
all my
tonight,
notes
right?
directly on
Dick,
each document.
I'm
and save
hoping
them.
Dick will, yes. I want you, can you use the budget that I have there for people to look at, because,
I'm using the one you mailed, you sent out.
okay,
No, this is different.
this is different.
Oh,
It's a few more changes, I know.
all right,
Here we go.
The select board had some
Before-
changes.
Before we go through those changes, unless Dina wants to highlight them, I wanted to highlight the things that the select board did.
Perfect.
if that's okay for folks. And I've got
All right,
line
let's start.
item numbers, and they may be slightly different, but I also have titles. And to start, I just wanted to say that, just remind folks that some of our numbers that you see from past years are audited numbers. And the audit always comes up a little bit different than our voted at town meeting. So we need to keep that in mind, so things won't be exactly perfectly aligned.
Could you just explain that a little more, Judy?
So
Because,
our auditors look at our numbers every year,
Yeah.
and it goes to the state and the DRA, and they make adjustments. Sometimes they put things in different lines, sometimes they want something done a little differently. Help me out, Dina, if I'm not
Sometimes
explaining
I've
it.
posted something incorrect, so they have to move things
Yeah, well,
around and
but
make them right.
here's the concern I have, and this is just, I didn't do this originally. I was doing some comparison between 21, 22, and proposed 23.
Okay,
And I did some arithmetic.
yep,
And then I saw there was one group that only had 2 or 3 in it, and I looked at the total for that group, and I said, this can't be the right number.
okay,
And so I went back and did arithmetic on every grouping,
yep,
and looked at the total and compared it to the total that appears on the report. I would say more than half the time they're different. And
From-
sometimes they're different by several $1,000s.
from audited numbers or from voted at town meeting?
No.
I'm talking about the total that's
Can I
at the
answer
bottom
that?
of each category. So you have a total in the
Each
first one, it's
department.
170,000. If you
Yep.
add them up, it's 169,000.
Okay, I can answer that.
Okay,
Like
thank
in
you.
2021, I don't know exactly which one,
He just was looking at executive.
right, I mean, I'm just, oh, okay.
Let's take the first
Right,
grouping.
so the auditor would give me a number, and the number they give me is the executive line, the total line.
Right,
So
It's the summary
end-
number for that category?
That's right, so that's what I adjust.
Okay, never mind, that takes.
So it
them
makes
up. Okay.
sense to you now? Okay,
Yeah,
good.
it just, what it means is we can't really understand internally where that adjustment gets applied to.
Well, we can't see the small line,
Right.
the subtitle lines.
Right,
The only lines
That's what
that
he
mean
said.
anything, or the only ones the auditor looks at and DRA looks at, are the ones that are in bold on the spreadsheet that have the account number. The small lines, we just use internally, for lack of a better way of wording it,
I think
as
it-
something to build the budget.
All I'm saying is that if you add the numbers up,
They don't
they're
always
off
agree.
by $200,000 at the bottom.
right,
There's not debits and credits that balance.
that's right,
The total difference is different.
right.
Now, you can't spend the money and then decide, oh, I didn't spend it, with all due respect. Either you spent it or we didn't spend it. And if we spent it, it's gotta appear someplace. You didn't spend it one place and then DRA said, no, put it somewhere else. Then you'd have a credit to one line and a debit to another line.
Yeah, if we have a surplus, when does,
It's not a surplus, it's just arithmetically
It's
incorrect.
just, right.
I see. But if we voted, so we voted to raise a particular money at town meeting, but DRA does the
This
audit
is not
before
voted,
they.
this is
No, it
spent,
has nothing to do with it.
spent,
This is spent money.
spent
Okay.
money.
It's at the end of the year, after
Uh-huh.
the end of the year when the
So you're
auditors
looking
come
at
in.
the actual line.
Uh-huh,
Right.
The actual column.
yeah,
And I adjust them because I want them to match the MS.
Oh, I
535
agree
that
they
we
should,
have.
Dina, but if we had at the end of the year, we'd spent $2 million even,
Mhm.
it doesn't really matter what category they came out of.
Mhm.
If you adjust them, some categories are gonna go up, some are gonna go down. But in this case, they all went up.
Well, Bill,
Mhm.
the thing you do, if you're really concerned about it, the only numbers you should use are the ones from the auditor.
Okay.
Just disregard the worksheets altogether and use the auditor numbers if
Okay.
you wanna be able to compare apples to apples.
This only goes back to the question, originally we talked about, why can't we have spreadsheets?
We-
And
okay.
I don't wanna go over that question again, that's what prompted me only
I
to bring it up
understand.
tonight, thank you.
So,
But, I'm sorry,
go ahead.
that it just, you know, what he's bringing up, you know, causes an issue, because as we look at these worksheets and we're going from year to year, and we're looking at the small items, you know, when we talk to the departments, it would be good to know more about that detail, about where the differences are, right? Because if he's talking about, I didn't do this exercise, right? If he's talking about $200,000 by the time he gets down to the last line, it would be helpful to know where at least the big changes are inside of the worksheet, so that as we're going through.
So-
And you do know the only
No,
column
these are
that
different.
that
These are
involves
new
is
as of-
2021.
And it's even better.
That's the only column.
That's the only actual that we have.
That's the only
Oh, I see.
audited number you
All right.
have.
Yeah.
That's
So-
the
Okay,
only one.
thank you.
One of the things for me that's helpful, and I understand the difference between actual and voted at town meeting, but to build a budget, if you just look at voted at town meeting, and you have these little lines, from my perspective, you see where you maybe have chunks of money that consistently didn't get used, that you can say, okay, we can reduce this line, or we can increase that line because consistently it's gone over. And that's kind of where I come from, and if you get, from my mindset, if you get too far into the weeds, you do spend a lot of time trying to reconcile between an auditor's accounting.
I like the global view and I like the detailed view both, they both have their place. My
Correct.
only point is, if the auditor said, move this dollar from this account, put it to that account, when you're done, the
It
total
should-
money we spent should be identical, and it's not. It's off by $200,000.
Sometimes stuff gets moved off budget, particularly
not,
grants,
Right.
because the grants are accounted for according to the auditor of
Correct.
the grant amount that you received and the grant amount you expend, and they have to be together, and they can't be part in the budget and part not. Traditionally, years ago, we used to have the New Hampshire Block Road Highway Block Grant
Yep.
is part of the budget. It isn't now, because you have to account for the grant as a grant, as in and out in the same lines.
Okay.
And the auditor may move one of the grants out of our spreadsheet. I don't know for a fact,
That's
but I know that can happen in accounting.
Yeah, okay. It's just
And they can
troublesome.
be several $100,000 moved out of the
And
spreadsheet.
what it showed when I looked at those numbers was that we had a 20% increase in 2 years in what we spent versus what we're talking about raising, voting as a budget this year. And so that's what the question ultimately comes from is, did we really get 20% more value in 2 years? Or is there some other explanation? And I don't know how else to ask the question because I don't know what numbers to trust anymore.
Okay, so I'm not sure I can answer that exactly, but I can tell you in 2 years, we have hired individuals. We had a two-person highway department for a short while, 6 months or 8 months, then we went to 3, then we went to 4, that's big money object.
Yeah.
We've had some police hiring, we've had some other folks, so some of that is pretty big numbers that can make a difference, but, we can try, and I think in fact we do have some, I've seen a sheet right now, I may not be able to put my, I can put my fingers on it, from 2012 to 2022, voted at town meeting and actual spent in each of those years, if that's at all helpful. But we could also try and pull out from old annual reports, voted at town meeting each year for all those years. Never mind actuals, never mind spent, just what was voted and how it's gone up.
Yep.
And,
It amounts to, depending on which number you wanna use, it's between $400,000 and almost $600,000 increase over 2 years. And that seemed to be sizable. And I'm not looking at any individual category and go, oh my gosh, this is wrong. I just think.
how did the operating budget, you're
Yeah, how
saying?
did we go from this number to that number and add $200,000 or $300,000 or $400,000 or $500,000, again, depending on the numbers you use.
So,
And
I'll see if I can work that up, because that doesn't sound right to me.
yeah.
No, doesn't.
It would sound right if we added some of the warrant articles from some of the years we had big road projects, but, as far as I know, most select boards try very hard to keep increases to a minimum in the operating budget.
We've got a whole bunch of one-time items that show up as special warrant articles.
Right, but
Right.
let's
But
see if we
that's not
can,
in the
Okay.
operating budget.
that's not in the operating
Right.
budget, right, so we should,
I know, but it may be when the auditor audits.
well, let's take the auditor out of it, let's,
Yeah,
If you're, if as a group, as the select board are comfortable with the budget they're proposing and they think we're getting good value for that, I don't have a better arithmetic than that.
okay, well, that's why it's here, and we did
Yeah.
spend a lot of time on it, and I have spent even more
I
time on
know
it.
you do, I'm asking you what the obvious
Yes.
it is. It's just that when you see this 400,000 difference in 2 years,
Yeah, I do not believe that,
yeah.
I'm
But-
using
not
Tina's spreadsheet, nobody
That's
else.
just not right.
This is,
okay,
I'm not changing any numbers, I'm just saying, take the 2.25 million and subtract it from the 2.75. It's $400,000 difference. Take the last number on the page.
Yeah, the 2.3
We're seeing 2.2, yeah, there's no.
well,
2.2.
this
2
select
points.
board this year is proposing 2,759,997.
Right. and subtract-
Last year, we proposed 2,681,542, which is a $79,000 difference between
But
last
you're
year
going
and
back
this
to
year.
21.
And he's going
I'm
back to
looking at
And
what
if you
we
go
spent.
back,
actual.
I'm looking at what we spent.
You can't compare actual and
Mhm.
proposed, they're different.
Yeah.
these are the
Yeah, I know, we've
budgets.
had that conversation.
Yeah, if you're gonna compare, you really gotta go with voted to town meeting,
Voted at town meeting.
vote for all consistency comparisons.
All right.
That's the only
And,
fair way.
and I can tell you, 21 voted at town meeting was 2,550,817. So, and voted at town meeting in 22, 2,681,543. So what is that, 131 or 130,000 difference? And 2020 was 2,392,649. So it's been incremental, but again, those are voted at town meeting to voted at town meeting. And it's not actually spent, because that's a whole different number.
No, I understand. So my only question was, that's what we spent to run the town 2 years ago, are you comfortable?
That's what we voted to run the town 2 years ago.
No,
and
that's
I-
what we spent.
The actual.
He's
That's
looking
the
at the
actual-
actual,
Actual.
right.
But,
And if you're comfortable adding 400,000,
I'm not comfortable adding 400,000, I'm comfortable adding the amount that we're adding here.
I don't wanna put words in your
Where
mouth.
we
From-
were
I'm saying,
down
yeah.
more than one employee, where, I mean, I can list off a
I
whole
know,
lot
but
of things that
I'm
made it
trying,
lower.
I will answer it this way.
Yes,
I'm comfortable that this budget is very responsible and very conservative.
okay, good, that's helpful.
And I did take, I'm a little defensive only because there was an email I received that really sounded like, and I understand you've got some different numbers than we've looked at.
Forget about
But
different numbers, forget about that.
It
I
sounds
take that
like
back.
everybody thinks we're cheating and we're not.
No,
So
not
I
at-
think
no.
we should be careful how we present our questions.
Anything I've said so far gives you any impression that I'm concerned about that, that's not it. It's just simply, are we getting good value for a significant increase, proposed increase over? And the other part of it I looked at was we're under 2 million now. What we spent so far this year, we've got slightly under 2 million. And is it gonna cost us that much to run the town for the next 6 weeks?
Okay, don't
Look at
forget,
the
we've got
updated one.
6 or 8 more weeks to
You're the
go.
outdated one.
We've got 6 or 8 weeks to go, and we're coming into a fairly expensive part of the year. So,
There are a bunch of one-time items that come up toward the end of the year.
What's that one?
All the interest things get paid at the end of the year.
The one-time items.
Fees,
Bill,
and
go to
all
page 10.
the charities get paid
Oh,
once a
the one you
year.
The
gave us?
one that I gave you, go to page 10.
yeah, the spent so far as of today, Dina posted 2,114,584.
So So in a week, you spent $100,000.
Well, it's not a week, because it wasn't updated, it was updated a while ago, but
Your
still.
number says as of the 9th,
It
this is
was-
the 16th.
we had a-
seven
Those were
days.
the numbers that we had posted at that time, but sometimes
Right.
things get posted
Oh, okay.
late.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So, and I expect when we meet in December, there'll be a bigger number there
Mhm.
again.
Like, all the bond payments get paid at the end of the year, and all the
All the
donations.
one-time payments get paid at the end of the year.
Yeah, so that's why it hits all of a sudden at the end of the year.
Yeah, it looks like we have a
Well,
lot
the
of
debt
money.
service isn't in here, the interest may be, but not the principal.
The bonds have already been paid, but there's a lot of big payments, yes.
Okay.
Not even trust fund payments, wait until we
Right.
collected the taxes, for example.
Right.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you, Judy.
You're welcome.
It was
All right.
well-intentioned, my comments.
thank you.
Let's try to have Judy explain the changes they made in the proposed budget for next year from what we had last.
Last week questions, so wages, we went back through, ensured that they were 8.7%. The library clerk is a new position, so that wage does not come under the 8.7% COLA increase. The library assistant got an 8.7 increase, but is working fewer hours, so it reflects differently. And the recreation director, which is line 291, we redid that line and that line, and it may no longer be 291, but the recreation director's salary increase now reflects an 8.7% increase, which is something folks were concerned about. Then there was a question about the legal, which was line 68, the legal settlement. We were told to record it, this was the second year of the payment for a legal settlement. We were told to wrap it into what we usually ask for in terms of just operating money for legal. And the only reason it's shown in italics was to show that we weren't expecting to have a line item consultation with counsel at $158,000, and in fact, we only spent $99,030 for that second payment for that legal settlement, so.
So, just a question with that, so, that, the number that we see, say in,
Line 67?
yeah, line 67, say, 22,
761, and then there's a 99 something
Right.
underneath that, which is the settlement.
right, so if I can finish, if we're looking at in 2022, vote at town meeting, the 158, that 103 is part of the 158.
Yes, that's correct,
Right.
yep,
Just-
yep. And so this year, we're projecting 45,000 for this year. Okay, moving on to line 215, which is contracted services. We had some discussion about that and how much it is. We have summer contracted and winter contracted, and we'll be using up a lot of contracted services, and there is an outstanding invoice coming in that from past work, but also all these snowstorms will build that line up. And if there's money left over at the end of the year, this is one of the few lines where we can actually carry that over to next year's contracted services. We do feel that that amount is needed. We may have a better idea when we come back mid-December and see.
Question, Judy, you skipped the increases in the fire department that between last week and this.
I'm coming to that.
All right, well,
Oh,
you're past it on the
Yeah.
spreadsheets.
I did pass it on the spreadsheets, yeah. The select board hasn't, as a board, discussed in any detail the idea of raising the cost of trash disposal. That's line 242 where we were talking about it. Raising it from 3 to 4. We will have a continued conversation with that. A quick conversation with our transfer station person, Matt, said he doesn't see why that couldn't be done. It might not be a good offset. I did recreation director already. Okay, going back to fire administration, line 150. I've had a chat with, a conversation with the fire chief. He understands the need to ramp up what he needs for things gradually. But line 150, who is administration,
Yeah.
those are the people that the chief was trying to distribute the money to.
I
So
see.
instead of raising his, we kept his at 6,250, but we put another, we went into 250, so we put whatever it was before, it was 1,750. We increased it to 2,500, and I would project that next year there might be an additional increase to offset some of the hours that volunteers are putting into administration work, and I think that was James' concern.
Yeah, thank you.
And then,
Forest fires got hooked up.
forest fires got put up because Dana reminded me that we had actually signed a contract and agreed to a split 50-50 grant. And that 3,000 is the town's 50-50 of the grant for things for forest fire. So if we cut that, we're going back on our word to say we're gonna support it.
I
So
see, so you wouldn't get the other $3,000?
we wouldn't get the other $3,000, and we'd already signed the contract saying we would support the grant and have 50%. The last item was the healthcare line 255, Public Health Council, and 1309 on line 255, we think is the right place for that. Line 269 was a duplicate and has been deleted. Those were the big things that I took away from last week's meeting and the changes that the town, the select board made to those items.
As an aside, who's the emergency management director now?
Michael Hudson.
Yes, Michael
Michael?
Hensley. I was trying to think, because we just have a new EMT paramedic running the fast squad. Michael, Mr. Miller,
Andy Miller.
Oh,
Andy
Andy
Miller.
Okay, yeah,
Too many names. Late at night. So that's where we are with my update.
I'm just gonna put it on the table again. I'm still uncomfortable with the way we're doing the beach.
Okay?
And the reason I say that is, we may think the town meeting will put money back in the budget for lifeguards, but we also don't think we're gonna be able to hire lifeguards. So, I don't think we should have it in our budget for lifeguards if we know we're not gonna hire any.
Well, I guess I would say we don't know that we're not gonna hire any. And I think, I did hear that one of the problems was that the pay wasn't enough, right? I don't know what the offer was for lifeguards, but anecdotally, I heard from somebody whose, son used to be a lifeguard, and then he was like, well, I can go to work at,
McDonald's or wherever.
right, and make more money, and that was what, his thing was for a summer job, was to make as much money as possible. So I don't know what.
That's
they're
a
offering to
$20,000
pay.
line item.
Which line are we at here?
Well, it's 18 is what
It's
budgeted at.
287,
Yeah, sorry.
$18,000
Yeah.
line item.
Right. And so what would that, how many lifeguards are we talking about? Is that what,
Yeah.
I think
We have no clue, and last year, when we advertised it, the select board set $15 to $17 an hour
I see,
as the rate. That's the going rate around here
for lifeguards.
for lifeguards, and it depends on experience.
Yeah, so what, we don't have, at some point, we did pay lifeguards, right? We-
Yeah, we
Back
did
in
for
2020,
years.
right? So what is the actuals, what do we actually
In
spend on that?
2020? Oh.
Because the earliest date we have, there was nothing paid to lifeguards in 21.
Right.
So we don't have anything to compare it to.
Well, I I
Well, we
can
can
look back,
easily
but we
look
used to
back.
have anywhere from, 6 to 12 lifeguards. And they were part-time, they didn't all wanna work very much, you have to have limited hours, there's certain laws you have to go by, blah, 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 there's a whole lot to it, but. I'm happy to look back, I have a nice little spreadsheet from years, I don't know how many, lots of years, that tracks how many we had and what we paid them and how much the total was and all that.
We did, James, last year advertise maybe 3 times, maybe more. Dina called around to even the athletic facilities, Upper Valley Aquatic Center, to the one in Lebanon, Stores Pond, Carl Weatherall.
Yeah.
They were all having issues with
Filling
getting
those.
lifeguards.
Yeah.
And actually, our conversations reflected sort of a lack of interest in those positions.
Right.
Yes, money is an issue, but it didn't seem to be the compelling issue.
And it's interesting that it's not just an Upper Valley problem, it's a national problem.
Yeah.
Lifeguards shortages, yes.
Did we ever get a report from the recreation committee?
No,
They haven't met.
they haven't met.
Will they give us a report?
Well, I hope so.
Okay.
I can't make them.
Well, but they want the money, I guess.
They would like the money,
There's
and-
like a quid pro quo, I think, someplace in that equation.
Well, I can say the Recreation Commission would definitely like to be able to give swimming lessons this year, so we would like some
I
stuff
mean, that's
down
all
there.
part of that whole
going on.
beach program.
Yeah,
Right.
we're talking about a lot of money here,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but there's no real, I'm waiting to hear what the program is, I guess.
I think they like this program. I sit in on those meetings,
Mhm.
but I don't think they've really taken the time to sit down and think about it, and there has not been an actual vote
Right.
to support this budget.
Right, the budget, they could meet to support the budget, that's one thing. I would like a little text that describes what the program is. I don't.
What the recreation program is
Well,
overall?
how they would, I can see the line item detail, but I don't know exactly what that buys.
Oh, it buys all the school sports activities. This-
I
No,
wasn't
not
asking you
this.
to answer the question, I just was
Oh, that's
asking
outside of
for.
this?
Yeah, the question I think before us is between the learn to swim, the lifeguards and the beach monitor, there's a certain number of positions, line items associated with the operation of the beach. And we haven't been able to have a learn to swim program for a number of years. We haven't had lifeguards for a couple of years. And we've got line items in the budget that are totaling in the thousands of dollars for those services, which we haven't been able to provide for a number of years. And it concerns me to leave that much money in the budget that we don't think we're gonna be able to spend. Based on the last few years.
If I had a report from the budget, from the recreation committee explaining how they're going to do it, that would help me answer your question.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want a report from the rec committee on how they're going to do the beach or
The beach.
the swim program, or,
Well, anything that happens at Post Pond, I would like to know what that is and what the dollars are that go to each component. That would be useful. And I know they buy other things, they have other sports teams that they support. I don't know how much of this money goes to those other things.
I
My
think,
understanding is that the rec committee
Well, except
has
the rec
taken over
directors
all of the sports that may have one time been
yeah,
part
I
of the
think
school.
most of the school sports have user fees.
Yeah,
They-
they're self.
they're- Right, they're self-funded. The rec
We have a
director
revolving fund.
oversees a lot of those, organizes those, gets them going. So I misspoke earlier, but that's what he does, and so,
Yeah.
You can take it out of the budget, but you know as well as I do.
It's
that
gonna
at
come
town
right back.
meeting,
Yeah.
it's gonna
All
go
right.
right back. in.
Even
Just
if it
leave
comes
there.
back in at town meeting, we are being responsible in notifying the town that this is not gonna be spent. And I think that our responsibility is to present what we think is the correct budget. Now, if the voters at town meeting wanna change it, that's their prerogative. But I don't think we should present a budget that we know is wrong because we're afraid to have it amended on the floor of town meeting.
I'm not afraid to have it amended, but I think, go ahead.
I guess I understand what you're saying, that it would seem more responsible to try to make a budget that is as close as what is, we're actually gonna spend. But I think in this particular case, you know, the town has expressed, you know, the desire to have this program. So I think that we could look at it aspirationally, you know, that we want this program if we can make it happen. So we're gonna keep it in the budget and, you know, and keep trying to make it happen, because I think that sometimes if we don't do that, we're signaling to people, whether it's true or not, that we don't really care about that program, that whether it happens or not. But I don't think that's the case here. I think that most of us would like to see it happen. So,
And I think too, if,
Bless you.
if it's in the budget, whoever is responsible for making this happen sees, I have, in fact, an obligation to do it, and let's, you know, if spending money earlier in the year can grease the skids and make it happen, that's possible. Where it's, if it's March and it's like, oh my God, suddenly we've got an extra $25,000, we are really behind the 8 ball, we should be sending, you know, there's all this stuff to do. So I like James's comment about it being aspirational. Let's really support this. What do we need to do to make it happen?
That's one,
Everybody else came who wanted money, all the other
Exactly.
departments came and explained how they would do it, pretty much line by line, they explained how they would do it. It gave us some comfort that these were reasonable requests, or within the realm of reasonableness. I haven't heard anything from the rec committee, except I see the numbers, but I would like them to defend their request.
I agree with Bill on that point, right? Because I think that the rec department hasn't taken on the pond program, from what I can see, at all. I mean, even the pond this year, the docks got out there because Matt Prince and Yola swam them out and put them out, like nobody
That's
was
not true.
going to come
Luke
out.
was in charge of it, he's on the rec commission, we didn't order them till late. I mean, there's 100 other
Right, but I
facts
mean,
to that.
but we had the fire department here, the police department has been here, everyone's
So,
been here,
on that
but
point-
then why
no,
didn't,
wait.
why didn't the rec department come and say, hey, we wanna run a pond program? I think it's their responsibility to tell us how much it's gonna cost them
And how
to
they
get
got it.
lifeguards, and so we can budget
Well, don't
accordingly.
forget, this isn't really a town department. The rec commission is a commission of volunteer people, and it was those volunteers who put in the docks, who pulled
Mhm.
out the docks, who did all the other work that happened down there. And this has been a continuing category that has gone through, and I don't believe any offense was meant. I'm not sure that rec
Yeah, no.
commission members have ever come into the budget committee to explain. But we've always
We had
presented
the pond
numbers.
program director a number of years
I
come
wanna
in.
say something. This year was very different. We always discuss the budget, we always talk about it, we always vote on it. And we made a mistake, and at our last meeting, we had 1,000 other things we did. Everybody got up and left. And then I sat there and went, oh my God, we forgot to do the budget. So
Okay.
that's the only reason why you haven't
Yeah.
gotten anything from the rec commission. And they're not meeting now until, I don't know, I can't even remember
Have
what
we
meeting
been
is,
beating
but
this?
it'll be soon.
Yeah, I mean, I just
We'll
don't,
get you in.
yeah, I just feel that it's unfair that the select board ends up taking all the flack what's going on. I mean, you know, I
Oh,
really
but there's a
do, I think
difference.
that there's more to this story,
Yeah,
and
but
it just
there's
like
a
it
difference
just
about
bugs me.
hiring people. The rec commission does not hire people. That's the board's job, so.
Yeah, but I agree, I mean, I see the problem, and it may not be that money is an issue. I can tell you from the school point of view, it's impossible to hire a custodian anywhere in the state of New Hampshire or Vermont right now. And we have expensive contracted services going on to clean the school now. And it's not necessarily because we're not offering enough money. It's literally people don't
Well, we
show
saw that
up
at the
to apply
library.
for the job, right? And so, and it is difficult, and I can see
Well,
the parallel
I-
here.
And Dina takes from this, we will get a write-up of some, and we will get a meeting of the commission to either support or not support the budget that the
Right.
selectmen put
I
forward.
misunderstood the role of the rec committee, I didn't realize they were not a formal committee and so forth.
They're
Yeah.
a commission, they're not a town department.
Right.
Okay.
It's like the Conservation Commission, so they have some independence, but they also rely on town funding.
And it's I'm sorry, it's a little different in that the director does have salary, right?
Yes.
Than the-
Yes, but he also spends a great deal of time organizing all those school sports and all the other things.
Absolutely, understood, yep.
Well, it's a
Jen,
question of what
If
the
you wanna
role
get a
of.
custodian, include housing in their package.
Well, I have no housing to
Good
offer
luck
them.
with that.
Well, chance.
Did you wanna
Zoning
make a
board
motion,
action
Dick?
for it.
Yeah, no, it is, I'm very sympathetic to that. It is a problem, and it's going to continue to be an ongoing problem, particularly with educational assistants. Like, we happen to be well-staffed in that department, we're lucky. Like, Hanover can't find people, Lebanon can't find people, and it's not the whole story, but part of the story is, you're paying people a $20 an hour position, and they can't afford anywhere to live around here, so they live as far, like, I know people who work at the gym, RBC, who live as far as Rutland. And it's getting to the point where it's not worth it for them to drive all the way in here, so, yeah, it'll be an ongoing, it's gonna be a problem that continues to exacerbate, and it's more than just the economy. It does have something to do with our housing stock, cost of living, specifically Lyme, Hanover, and even Lebanon now used to, I think, be thought of as affordable, and I'm not so sure that's the case
Yeah,
anymore.
I mean, you have to hire people from Bradford and north.
Away through, so,
Jim, you wanted to say something,
I
Bill.
was just asking, did you wanna make a motion about what to do with the rec budget? What
I
parts
don't
of-
think we're ready for that.
Okay, all right, I
Bill.
just-
I mean, this is just a personal opinion. I think we've all expressed things about it. And I think we need to digest it a little bit, because there was some new things being thrown out tonight on the rec issue.
Okay.
And I brought it up because I thought it was something that we needed a little more discussion of than what we've had so far. Now, how are we set on the rest of people's, anybody else have an area of the budget that they wanna discuss more? Basically, the operation budget.
The only thing is, again, that, the legal settlement makes it, if you take that out, it makes the increase for this year, that much more. It is, that, not that that wasn't an operational thing, but, yeah, that's the only comment. To me, I think, I looked at, the stuff that Dina gave me for years going back, and really, over the years, all the departments stay pretty much the same percentage of the budget. There's, movement here and there, there's, the increases don't amount to a lot. There was the legal settlement, that was a jump, and then the only departments that increase, the highways, they jump. That seems pretty uncontrollable, because of costs, and then the police gradually have increased over the last couple of years. But I don't see like anything that is saying like, what's going on here, kind of thing, to me.
appreciate that.
I think one of the issues that's hard to digest, and there may be other line items I'm not aware, but we do have non-recurring expenses, costs that we budget for, but they're one time, or maybe they're spread over a couple of years, but they're not gonna come back predictably year after year. Are there other things besides the legal settlement that's of that nature that's in the budget that we should be aware of?
What comes to my mind is the milfoil treatment at Bose Pond.
But that's a really.
That's not in the operational
No.
budget though.
And it's gonna come back, we're gonna
It's gonna
hopefully
live
take care
forever.
of that for years. You know, nothing pops into my
Okay.
mind, but I'm gonna make a note that that's something else that I should look at to see, if they're one-time expenses. Well, one of this, like for the police, his computer line this year was high, because Hanover went to a different computer system and he had to buy the whole new computer system, and that was $6,000 or $8,000.
I mean, one
Software.
question, like with the
I
legal.
think that's helpful when we're explaining this at public meetings, to describe those things that are non-recurring and those things that are ongoing. I realize DRA doesn't probably think about it that way, and
Right,
good for them, but.
So for me, that is sort of why, when I compare voted at town meeting, and we brought in last year's annual reports if people wanna take them, because they do have some history in there that you can look at, and you go year to year to year, and you get a sense of, what we thought we were going to need and what got voted, and how it got explained.
Yeah, and I think also what's a little different when you're budgeting in a municipal context versus a corporate context is that you don't have the option to go back to the well.
Right?
And so you have to build in a contingency
Right.
or some
Yeah.
wiggle room, because you can't always know what the future is, and you just can't go to the bank and say, oh, we need a little short term here.
Well, I think one thing we did do
Thank
over the
you.
years is we've worked with our capital reserve funds.
Yes.
And we've worked, a good number of them now that have a designated agent. And, I mean, it's not just in the town, but we have those emergency repair funds. The bridge fund now, the selectmen can tap if they need to. The school has a couple of accounts that operate that way. And that's fairly
We have to
recently.
be overspent, like this sped we can spend, we have a special education trust, and that's a trust fund that we can spend even if we're not overspent in either sped lines or on the bottom line, but every other fund, we can't extract money from those funds unless we're in a deficit on the bottom line.
Well,
So it's a little,
However you
so it's a
get
little,
there.
so it's a little different, so sometimes we actually budget to draw, that's what,
well,
that's
we
what we
do
try
that
to
with
do.
high school tuition and with
Yeah.
special ed. We basically count on those capital reserve funds and picking up the slack.
Yeah,
And we have a number of the emergency highway repair, emergency equipment repair, bridge fund that operate that way in the town budget. And when we originally set up the computer equipment, office equipment fund, whatever you wanna call it, we used to every 3 years buy a new copier. And it showed up as a one-time item, and now we pay for it out of that fund. So it doesn't, it distort.
Right. And the other thing is, we don't capitalize our fixed assets in the same way that other types of accounting do. So we don't, it always shows up as an expense, it never shows up as an investment, right? You pay for the fire truck year after year, but you don't have a balance sheet that shows on the other side that we own the fire truck.
Yeah.
I don't know that we do, but Dina can check on that.
No, I'm not
We don't-
asking for it.
We
I'm
don't
just
work
saying,
on it.
It just,
here.
it leads
The auditor does.
an impression that this is just money that keeps going and going. We don't see the balance sheets, we have, 800 culverts or whatever the number is, no, 400, 500 culverts. We have a bunch of fire trucks,
Right.
we have a lot of stuff we
We-
own.
The balance sheet is the town.
Well, there are specific
yes,
items
yes,
that
I
are
know what you're
actually
saying.
on that balance sheet, and we don't see it or show it in that same
It-
context.
It's not done in that same way, absolutely,
Yep.
you're right.
All right, are we ready to proceed beyond the operation budget?
It's,
Judy?
well, it's short. We don't have anything formal to present, but we are anticipating that next year we will see the Goose Pond Road project go forward, and believe that it will be funded from the Capital Reserve Class 5 Roads fund and block grant funds. So we're at this time not anticipating that we will need any new tax dollars for that. There may be a new highway truck. We haven't got that firmed up yet. We're close. And that will come also out of the Capital Reserve Fund for highway equipment. And the standard things, the fire station payment, the existing fire truck payment, milfoil work, cemetery work, they will all come out of capital reserve funds. Last week we talked about, you got a spreadsheet, or you got a little sheet on money going into the capital reserve funds, and a little bit of an offset from where our operating budget is. We came up with $380,000 going into the capital reserve and expendable trust funds. And the only two questions at the end of the meeting were, we projected putting $20,000 into the town poor expendable trust fund, should we put more in? We still have not heard from our overseer as to what she predicts there. And or for the firefighting safety equipment, we doubled what we put in last year, which was $5,000. There was some question if folks thought we should put more in, and the budget committee does not have a recommendation on that. The select board does not have a recommendation on that at this time. Trying to a little bit offset, not nearly quite what the operating budget went up, but a little bit.
I would just say, when I looked at that, I was concerned about the town poor fund, with what's going on right now. Because historically, we had a couple of years where we were up in the high 30,000s in terms of town poor. And there isn't enough in that fund, with just adding 20,000 to it to
Well,
cover.
We have 21,549 right now, so if
Yeah.
we put 20 in, we'd have 41.
Yeah, but we pushed 40,000 a couple of times in the past without the inflation and economy that we've got right now, so I'm a little concerned with that fund.
Well, I
That's the
think
only
we
one
should
I
see
have.
what Nancy has to
concern
say, yeah,
Yeah.
because she knows what she's looking at.
Okay, yeah,
Because sometimes one family can push you over the limit on that point.
okay. Thank you, Dick. We'll check on that. And that's kind of where we are. We know we've got two anyway, warrant articles coming up. One for more
I was thinking about
Workers.
that. And I looked back at the manual,
supervisors, yeah,
and it says a minimum of 3.
yeah.
Do we need to have, if we have another person who's interested, they would have to be elected. Do we need to have a warrant article to increase that number?
Yes.
No, you were the one that asked us to put it on there.
Right.
I guess
but
we should check
I would check to
What
see,
are we
because I don't
talking
think
about?
we need to
for
have.
supervisors of the elections.
Okay.
Like, the checklist, not of the elections.
I
Right.
think
No,
you
supervisor
do,
of the
because
checklist.
you've only elected 3 for the last however many years, so I think you just need a quick vote at town meeting to increase the numbers.
Just like the number of years the
I
subject
think,
came up,
but I don't-
increasing the select board from 3 to 5.
Well, that definitely is,
That would.
And
Under
that
the
definitely
RSA.
required a vote at town meeting. And I think it would also require it for, like, the zoning board of adjustment was set up by a vote at town meeting as its composition. And I think the planning board was also, so they may, most of those boards
But these are
are
states,
that way.
these are state regulated.
right, so
So is the
we'll check.
supervisor of the checklist, the state
That's
regulated
what I'm saying,
board,
it's
yeah.
state regulated, so it just says a minimum, it doesn't say a maximum.
No,
Right.
I know, but sometimes you have to still elect.
Ask
Oh,
Your
you
Patty.
composition.
definitely have to be elected, but.
but whether we need permission by
Right.
town
Do we
vote
need
or
to go
just
to
say,
town? Oh, we
let's
just,
have them
we
run.
want to do that, if we can find somebody.
The other warrant article we've been asked is, again, a non-money article, to make the select board responsible for the fire fund, release of funds. There are instances where like the $3,000 for the matching grant, if there's money in the fund, if the board could have just signed for it
Instead of
Oh, the
waiting.
fire
instead of
safety
waiting
equipment.
for town meeting.
Yes, the fire safety equipment, capital
Yeah.
reserve fund.
Yeah, because we designated agents on the funds, and I know that requires a vote of town.
It
Right,
is,
right,
yes.
so that has been a request,
Okay.
yeah.
You're gonna ask the town to let you do something?
Well, I mean, but with that fund, the issue comes if you lose equipment in a fire, then you're.
No, I know, I agree, it's just like, I forget what
He's
the money.
making a funny.
The last year that they didn't let you do it.
Yes, I know. Well, maybe the fire department requesting it will have a different result.
Okay.
Do we have anything else productive, or can we say Happy Turkey Day and see everybody? I think it's the middle of December, we get the first look at the school budget.
December 14th.
Yeah, well, I said middle, that's pretty
Oh,
close
did
to
you?
the middle.
Very close, yes. Actually, I did wanna ask a question. I had asked it earlier about the money that's going into these capital reserve funds and how much do we draw out of it? Every, on the average, every year.
Well, the problem with the capital reserve funds is there are a whole series of one-time items.
Sure.
So if you look historically at the capital reserve funds, the heavy equipment one is a classic one.
Right.
Just the
You go and you
community
take nothing out of it for 3 or 4 years, then you buy a grader for $300,000.
So this little guy is
Yep.
really very handy. Now, it doesn't go back too far, but it'll
Yeah.
go back a little bit, and you'll see last year and the year before, because we have minutes there,
Yeah.
the
Okay.
warrant articles that requested money from the
Sure,
capital
I
reserve
realize that,
funds.
and my question.
Give me your email address, write it down right there, and I'll send you something.
Do we project
It's
that?
all online, just so you know.
Well,
It's
I-
all on the
It is
website,
online, okay.
all the town meetings, all the town
Yeah, but I-
reports
Reports are
with.
there.
There are
You-
tables
You
somewhere.
have the tables? All right, I will,
Give me
Yes.
something and I
I
can
will
send
give
you
you
a
a piece
table.
of paper.
Can I make one other point? In
Yeah.
answer to your question is, all vehicles are replaced on
A schedule.
a schedule.
Right,
So for the 3 years, there's a new police cruiser. Every 6 years or 12 years, there's a new town
equipment
truck, heavy
truck.
equipment truck.
And the issue that we look
Every
at,
100 years, we get a new fire truck.
that's the question, is how often do you replace some of the things? And what really put us in the hole was when we added the excavator and the roller to the heavy equipment, and there was no provision in terms of stocking the fund to pay for them. Then the fire truck came in at 2.5 times what we'd been replacing fire
I heard
trucks
that,
at.
yes.
So,
Anyway, it's a good question, and it's good to have a look at it and see what we've done.
I can send you just get some.
I have a question, in terms of process, when do we, add our numbers in the last column on the right, on the selectmen's proposal? When-
Usually at the meeting where we vote on what goes to the public hearing in the middle of January.
So we won't come back and look at this again in a formal way until after Christmas, is that what you're saying?
Basically, yeah.
Okay, all right, yeah. Thanks.
I mean, we know we're basically the same as the selectmen right now, I think.
Well, maybe not.
No, I just didn't know in terms of when did we have to be ready to put up our hand and say aye.
So.
We have a meeting just before the public hearing, that week before.
118, so we used to do it earlier than that, and then people seemed to feel it was not necessary, but Wednesday, 118, there's discussion and possible vote on town and school proposed budgets to take to the public hearing. And then the final discussion is the following week, if it's necessary, if we haven't had a vote. 118 and 125, Dick, and then the public hearing is a couple weeks later. That's your schedule.
Yeah,
Okay.
all right, yeah, it's the middle of January that we,
Yep.
So the 14th is the school presentation?
Yes.
December, right, okay.
And then 111 is also school.
Okay, Okay, all right, I'm
And
good, I've got it on my calendar. right now.
118, I think you have it, is town
You should have the
and
schedule.
school.
I do, I have it right, okay, good.
Can I ask a question about the revenue? Can you explain to me again, like the unassigned fund balance, that's stuff we didn't spend that we had,
That's basically,
Voted.
we appropriated the money but didn't spend it.
okay, cause that is a big number
Yes, it is.
right now.
And we want it to be a big number.
You're
Because
talking about 711, that one? Yeah.
Be-
Which line is
but-
that?
it's in the
Is that the
revenue
revenue
line.
report?
On the
Yeah.
MS something.
So we-
Oh, okay, I have that.
Yeah.
I'm
So
looking
it,
at
it
revenue
gets
sheet.
used on a couple of different things. If there's a big jump in the tax bills, you can take that money and use it to help buy down the tax rate.
Okay,
I believe it can also be used if there's a legal settlement,
so in a way, yeah, okay.
but we don't have access to just go in there and grab that money and
Okay.
spread it out.
Other than to
This is the
reduce
DRA
taxes.
program. This is what the DRA recommends percentage-wise that you retain. And
Okay.
5% is their
We'll find
minimum
out.
recommendation. I think ours is at 6.3, something
Right
like
now,
that.
okay, all right.
Now, remember, it's based on a percentage that includes the school as well as, it's our total taxes that percent is based on.
Okay,
not the
that's very
town
helpful,
budget.
all right, yeah.
And
I know,
at
it's
one point, we had it up
great.
over 20%.
They make it as difficult and confusing as they can.
Yeah, it just seemed
It's
like,
totally-
you know, it's not that we over budgeted, it's really that
Mhm.
you're,
Well, just as Bill was saying, we can't go back to the well.
yeah.
And if you'll notice when we get to the end of the year, if we have, say we have 100,000 left, which would be great, but, we can buy some of the wish list things, or some of the things we put off buying because we weren't quite sure there would be enough to cover all the costs, salt, sand, overtime,
Okay.
et cetera. So, where was I going with that? Oh,
Yeah.
so basically, we don't have a huge amount of fluff, but as Bill was saying, you have to build in enough excess that you don't get to August and go, huh, you know, we're not gonna have money for the upcoming winter storms, or we're gonna not
Right.
be able to put gas in the cruiser, which people might like, but.
So when can that unassigned fund balance actually be used?
It can be used when we set the tax rate to help offset the tax rate.
Okay,
DRA will ask the select board if they wanna contribute to it. And I'm not sure if you have to go to court for legal settlement, or if that's the one thing that the board can use it for, but it's,
When we had that, we had to go to the commissioner of the Department of
You
Revenue.
have to act right, you have to do that. The
We-
only
we
thing you
can't
can
just
just
go and
use
grab
it
it.
for, right, is an overseer of welfare.
uh,
You know, if that, for some reason, you don't have enough money to pay
oh, yeah, you're
for
right,
stuff,
okay,
you
yeah,
can
yeah.
use that money for that.
But those two are delegated to the head of the Department of Revenue
Right, we don't
Administration
actually have
rather than
control,
having to
you've
go to
got
there
court.
is a
Yeah.
control,
Yeah.
yes.
And then, is this, just to check, just to make, maybe to make a point, this, if the school has a surplus, generally, we've voted at town meeting to direct those funds to trust funds if there is a surplus. And then
Right.
if there's still money after that, I think it goes to this this unassigned fund.
I believe
Mhm.
it's.
So that's
yes.
also, so that's not just like town,
Not town,
there
but it's
is
the school as
probably,
well,
the
yeah.
school has probably contributed
As well,
to
yeah.
that fund as well
Mhm.
over time.
All right.
Maybe a long time.
Were there any other?
Well,
line
not
items-
recent
After you
years.
stop.
Not,
We
like
started
certainly
voting
before
it.
COVID, like long before
Before.
COVID.
Wait a minute, all right,
Before they did. trust
silence
funds.
please, Bill.
Were there any other line items besides the contract for the road, road crew, the contracted
Oh,
service for the
The
road?
contractor one that
Yeah,
can be
is there
carried
any other
over?
line items that can carry over?
Dina and I talked about that, I don't think there are, it has to go
The
to
only
something.
thing that you can carry over is anything that you actually have a contract for.
Okay, all right.
So,
You've already obligated the funds even though you haven't spent them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
okay, all right, yeah.
it's not a general line item, but say you had a contract for, I don't know,
Sand,
sand would be good, salt, something like that,
Yeah.
and you had extra in that,
Right.
you could carry that over. But they're usually very few, in fact, I was Dino was having to sit on me pretty tight
Yeah.
there, cause I kept saying, okay, we could carry this one
Yeah.
over, and we could carry this
Yeah.
one over.
It's, you went to buy a vehicle, and Ford hasn't produced an F-350 yet,
Right,
so you don't get it until February.
Yeah,
yeah, okay. Yeah, but you've signed the
We did
purchase
that.
order and
Yeah.
you're gonna
Yes, we
take
have done
delivery
the
when it
police
comes.
cruiser.
Yeah, got it,
Yeah.
okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That would be a classic example of that.
that's a good, yeah.
So I have a question, just because December 14th I'll be presenting, and the way I like to work things is have a deck of slides, like PowerPoint slides, and organize it, walk through. Do we have a projector?
I
Or
have
does the
one, I'll bring
school-
one for you.
Well, the school, because
Usually
the
the
school
school brings
might have
theirs.
one, so I'll check and I'll make sure, but either way, can I email the slides out to people like a couple days beforehand?
Most people have PowerPoint or something.
Yeah, I
to
just
show
wanna
them
like, we
how
just
to-
can't discuss them over email, like if I email everyone, I just,
Share the-
yeah, I may share them so people can look at them, because it's just a
Yeah,
lot of
send it-
information,
you should
it'll be
send it to
easier.
Send it to
Send it
Dina,
to
and
Dina.
Dina will
And you
send
can
it
send
to
it?
everybody.
I'll do that.
That
Yeah.
my sending out the minutes was an exception, because Dina had
Right.
already sent her package.
It can be hard to see with the projector, it's not great, so
Yeah.
in that case, you might wanna
Well, that's
bring,
one of the
you might
things
wanna
on
bring
the wish
something to
list.
look at if you wanna see things while we go through very clearly.
Sometimes it's easier to see on the
On the
whiteboard than it
whiteboard.
is on the printed copy.
Yeah, well, I won't print, I probably won't print pages, I wouldn't print pages out necessarily, but if you brought your own tablet or computer, that might be easier, but it's up to you. I just thought I'd throw that out there, and I will try to make sure people get those, maybe hopefully over the weekend before the 14th. So,
And
I'm already building them.
Mr. Chairman, I regrettably will not be here because I'll be rehearsing for the Rebels show over in Lebanon. So you guys will be on your own.
Sing a song for us.
All right.
Fa la la la
So
la.
when's our
All
next
right.
meeting?
It's 5 minutes
The
after
14th of
8. Is
December.
there anything else,
Nothing
or
until
can
then?
we adjourn and go home?
I so move.
Second.
Yeah, good.
Okay, thank you, Wilkes.
At
Bye, Wilkes.
8:05.
Safe driving.
Oops, sorry, hung up.
Yeah, I only got 3 hours to get, okay.
Okay. Whatever you said.
Only it's gonna take him 3 more hours to get to where he's going.
Oh, jeez. I hate that.
Yeah, don't try to go someplace down in the Boston area on Wednesday afternoon next week.
Boy.
Oh, Thanksgiving, I know.
Why, is something happening?
Yeah,
Parade, is there a
it's
parade?
called Route 128.
Yeah.
Even on a good day, it's packed.
Yes.
You don't want your copy of the town report?
I'm still trying to get it to
I've got enough copies.
Yeah.
That was for
I have at
Rich.
least 2 at home, Judy.
Okay, very
come.
good.
Department to come? Yeah.
Yeah.
Assessing something to
I
come and
can't
give.
sleep at night.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I've been in the OR since 2 AM, so I'm
Oh
gonna
my
sleep.
gosh, poor thing.
Lesson on
Thanks for coming.
how the
Trustees.
assessment world works.
Yeah.
Reports in the town.
Because people, I know somebody asked,
It shows how much money went in.
went up
Doesn't show
this
with
budget.
the truck, 2 cruisers or whatever.
How
There's
the-
a separate little spreadsheet that was given a couple of weeks ago.
That's right.
And it was sort of their projection.
Why their assessment was. That's why.
That's
It
right.
went up.
Well, you know, and like, what are the big flows of money into and out of these things is sort of the question I'm asking.